Okay, we'll move back in the agenda to UWF. Jim Hurd, Associate Vice President, Student Affairs.
I'll be driving.
From over there, all right, we got slides.
Well, I say I'll be driving. I don't see the remote.
Oh, yes, go ahead, I'm sorry. I'm on the wrong side.
Yes.
Don't move again.
Thank you for this afternoon for having us come. My name is Jim Hurd. I'm the Senior Associate Vice President for Student Affairs, and I'm honored to have the opportunity to do this. I have a couple of colleagues with me who are going to keep me out of trouble, I hope. I do want to say that we have a considerable amount of student support, and one of our challenges, being in Pensacola, we have quite a drive. Next week is midterm. Josh Finley, our SGA president, had intended to come. He was not able to come. He did send a letter with me. I have a copy that I'll leave with staff to share. I would like to take just a moment. I know time is precious, but I would like to take a moment just to read a couple of excerpts from Josh's letter. I will not read it all. Josh is a student politician, and he wrote a page and a half, single space. But I want to read just a couple of phrases. Dear committee members, I apologize for not being able to be in attendance today. I ask that you accept this letter on my behalf. He goes on to say that due to many of our efforts on UWF has seen major increases in the retention of first and second year students, an increase in student involvement with student organizations, and an increase in the number of community service hours completed by students each year. Due to the increases in involvement and enrollment, we have outgrown and outused our current student life facilities. Thus, we present you the Student Life Services and Facilities fee. Originally, when I presented this to the board in June, this fee was intended to help us raise funding to build a new student life facility. However, since then we have revised the proposal that is before you today to be consistent with BOG regulations. The proposal is intended not to build new facilities, but to renovate and provide upgrades to current existing facilities, while also supplementing some of the A&S fee burden on funding operations and maintenance of those facilities. By supplementing this burden, the A&S fee will be able to provide student organizations and other departments more funding for programs and events that benefit the student body. I wanted to read that in particular because when we began the process of discussing this fee, it was well before the legislative decision to give the board the authority to do this and before we knew the regulations. Since we came to understand the regulation, we worked with our students to revise the intent of the student fee proposal, the Student Life and Services Facility fee. Broadly speaking, both of our fee requests today are driven by a combination of the so-called new normal and what I'm calling the new reality for UWF. The notion of new normal implies that we must reevaluate our priorities and we have to find resources to accomplish our objectives. UWF's new reality relates to our changing demographics and the increased demands from our students, like Josh, for a fuller campus life experience. The opportunity to provide more comprehensive and sustained campus life experiences not only is good for student satisfaction, but it also improves student success as well. Decades of national research link student retention and success to supportive and engaging environments. The same thing you've heard from our colleagues earlier today. At UWF, we see that the nature of our students has been changing dramatically, and the experience that they're looking for is changing as well. In the last 10 years, we've had nearly a 30% increase in the number of Florida residents coming to UWF, but that really is only part of the story. While the number of students from our local 3 counties has increased 15%, and the number of students from the 8-county panhandle has increased 17%, the number of in-state students from outside the panhandle, the rest of the state, has increased 108% in 10 years. Why does this matter? Because these students are coming further from home, they're coming into our region, and they're making a difference in our student population and culture, and they're expecting more in the way of student life and activities and facilities. We also have seen growing campus life. Our on-campus housing has increased 51% in 10 years. Our last 3 new residence halls have added over 700 lower division students, mostly freshmen and sophomores, and we are nearly full. Actually, we opened fall at 101%. and we dwindled down to 98.9. So basically we were full. And additionally, half of our FTIC students, our first-time in college students, live on campus with us. These students are expecting campus life and services at a higher level. This proposal does enjoy lots of student support. I read Josh's letter. Josh and SGA went through this process with us prior to even the board having the authority to look at this. We were prepared to try to advocate for it in different ways. The SGA has fully endorsed this. Josh has spoken on behalf of it at our own Board of Trustees and at this Board of Governors meeting last June. We have made a commitment to making sure that student participation and engagement stays in the process. We all have some sort of a CITF process at our institutions. We have taken the step of updating our CITF committee from what was basically an ad hoc group. As you know, CITF, the call for that comes fairly infrequently, so we'd always done it with an ad hoc group. We now have a standing committee of 16 with half student leaders named by the SGA president and others. And this committee is charged with reviewing and approving projects and setting priorities and assessing student satisfaction with the results. Our master plan does call for the construction of a student union sometime in the future, and we know that that's going to be critical. Conservatively, we know that that's going to cost $30, $40, $50 million. Our student survey data suggests that there's great support for that. But the fact of the matter is that CITF funding has not kept pace with that growth over time. As we've already heard one of my colleagues mention, at UWF we're very similar. Since 2005, we have had 2 CITF allocations totaling just over $8.8 million in that period of time. So it will take a long time at that rate to build a new student union. And even with the potential for $1 a year annual increase over time, it would still take a number of years to get to the point of where we could build a new union based on the CITF fee. But certainly we do want to be supportive of that effort to increase the CITF fee, and we do see that as the answer to a new union. However, we do know that we have lots of other needs. Our students are asking for the spaces that they have to be upgraded and updated. So this new fee will offer an accelerated and measurable impact for students in both developing and funding minor projects and buffering those program areas from increasing the operational costs. For example, in our student union, the second floor of our university commons is home to our student organizations, 160-something student organizations, and it's in great need of updating and maintenance, including recarpeting, bringing technology into the meeting rooms, and those sort of things. And we have a greater list that was in the original proposal. But those are the sort of immediate projects that we would be able to work with our student committee to identify what those priorities are and actually fund those and measure the success of those pretty quickly. We also have the issues of our plant operations and maintenance. As you know, CITF buildings and buildings not built by PICO funds do not bring with them money from the state for housekeeping and other things. For example, we are opening a new health and wellness building, which is a CITF-funded building, later this semester. We, for the first time, will be having to pay some of the POM costs out of the health fee. The $70,000 we're budgeting for that would hire a new counseling psychologist. And as you know from the news nationwide, the number of students we're seeing with issues that we need that kind of support, that's a major problem for us. So in summary, for this fee, the per credit hour portion of the fee will fund minor projects that either are not eligible for PICO or E&G funds or that just simply don't make it to the list. Those funds themselves are very limited, and often when we're being compared to essential academic and research facilities, some of these small projects simply don't make it. The block fee portion of the fee would generate revenue to fund the increasing demands for maintenance that we see heading toward our program fees. We did intentionally go with part per credit hour and part block fee. The block fee for the maintenance piece is predicated on the notion that head count equals feet, which equals wear and tear on buildings. So the block fee is designed to generate revenue based on the number of people, not necessarily how active they are involved. And just in the interest of time, I'll move on to the orientation fee. We know that many researchers over time have noted that the importance of a strong orientation program to the success of students. We know that it promotes retention and success in first-year students. in a number of ways by increasing the awareness of the student support services that are available and increasing students' participation and use of those, promoting the students' integration into the culture of the campus and the community of the university, and improving the coping skills that support student success in the long run at the university. The orientation fee really is an issue of the new normal. The program fee has not increased in many years. And, for example, staff time, both professional staff and our student staff, have dramatically increased over that time, meaning that within the context of the total program, the participant fee covers less now than it did previously. This really means that all students who are paying their tuition are supplementing this program to at least some degree. As orientation programs nationally and UWF have really become more comprehensive and focused on early engagement of students, the investment we put into the program has grown considerably. Quite simply, the cost of goods and services has gone up with time. I went to work at UWF in the fall of 1986. My first freshman orientation there as director of their student union was 1987. What you could buy for $35 in 1987 would cost you $65 or more today. So we're looking at some ways to simply change the model of how we recover costs on that program. So in summary, the orientation fee is designed to increase opportunities to enhance the program without adding additional institutional resources and to create an opportunity to reallocate some of those resources to support other student transition programs such as first-year experience programs, living learning communities, and other transition issues. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Jim. Are there any questions? If not, I've got a few. Okay, I'll go ahead. I go back to the conversation that we had with Joe earlier. I appreciate the presentation and the clarity of the use of funds. Jim, it sounds to me like this is CITF money. It's really just a fee to backfill CITF shortfalls. And again, as a board, and I like the ideas, I like the projects. Clearly, what you need to do, you need to do. My trouble is that I feel as though what we're doing on these projects in your project list and the constant reference, obviously, to CITF, is basically accessing this fee, using this fee for a purpose for which it may not have been intended, which is CITF money. So I guess it's a two-part question. Number one, I presume UWF would certainly get behind the board in our request for enhanced and increased CITF if we would make that happen this year. But number two, is there, am I right? Is this just kind of CITF on steroids, or can you dissuade me that this is somehow different from CITF? I mean, you could use CITF money for all these things, correct?
I think there are a couple things that make it unique. One is CITF by its very nature is, at least for us, because of the amount of allocation we would tend to get, tends to be focused on the big projects that come in frequently over a 3 to 5 year period of time, and we would tend to look at what can we build big. Most recently, our health center. Prior to that, our child care center. The student union in the future, would be an even bigger ticket item. The kind of issues we've identified here are those things that you might fund out of a variety of pots. You might fund out of carry forward A&S money. You might fund out of auxiliary monies, or cobble together partnerships or projects between departments. We have a number of issues on campus where our campus environment is sort of like not to get too folksy, but it's like the frog being in the pot. The frog doesn't know the water is getting too hot to live until he's already dead. UWF is sort of that way. We have been growing incrementally, but we've also been changing our demographics. Even though we've had growth, we've experienced a demographic shift that's really accelerated with those students coming from elsewhere and the demands they're placing on our facilities. So I don't see this fee, the facility fee, as a replacement for or necessarily a direct supplement to CITF, although it may have that impact. It really is a way to generate a resource within the environment that we're in to be able to do fairly timely responses to student demands for upgrades to their space. Things that students see that they would like to have that we can't wait until we get the next CITF piece and say, okay, instead of using our entire CITF allocation for this big project, we'll sliver off this much for this minor project and this much for that minor project and diminish that capacity. For example, when we built the Child Care Center, we weren't able to build the full program because we had some minor projects on the list, and therefore we weren't able to expand the capacity of our Child Care Center nearly as much as we would hope to because of that need and the span of time. And so even with the increase in CITF, buildings for a growing campus will continually be more expensive, and I don't see that model changing. So yes, I see that it could be seen as a substitute for, but I see it as being just one more tool in our tool belt of having ways to respond promptly to student demands for space renovation, for being able to use our spaces in different ways to get some immediate results for student satisfaction.
Well, and I appreciate the direct answer. I guess the challenge that we have is, do we believe that was again, and I know I've said this repeatedly, this is our first pass on these fees, and exceptions create rules, and I just want to make certain, it's not my belief that the fees were, the authority to create these fees were intended to be kind of the extra A&S or the extra E&G or the extra CITF monies that you can't find anywhere else in the budget. My belief in this fee is it's supposed to be something different, enhancing the campus, not basically O&M that should be covered elsewhere. So I think we need to figure that. I think your presentation is very clear, and I thank you for that. I think we now need to figure out what is the message that we want to send, because again, this is our first pass. If the idea is we can authorize a 4.9% fee to basically muscle up O&M costs or CITF fees, well, I don't think that's what it was for, but that's a message that 10 other universities are going to hear.
Yeah.
So let me just open up to conversation. I mean, certainly the project sounds great. I'm not sure that this is the appropriate funding vehicle for it. Governor Beard?
I think you're correct on that, and I'd like to see us do what we did before, and that is take a no vote and then find out what the intent is, and then vote on it at our full board meeting.
Wait, I have a question.
Governor Franklin?
When you say intent, you're saying in reference to what they want to do with the fee, or what do you?
No. The challenge that we're having is, particularly on this one, at least for me, it appears to me that the intent behind the initial fees, the additional fees we're authorized to grant, was not to be the supplement to, well, you ran out of A&S bonding capacity, so let me move that money from let's create a new fee here and reduce your A&S so you can bond it. Let's create a new fee here, reduce your health fee so you can bond it. It wasn't to supplement existing fees, like, well, you don't have enough money in CITF to cover this, so let's do it over here. It was to be something new and different and dynamic and campus enhancing that the students want, not ongoing operations and maintenance funding, salary lines that should have come elsewhere. So I think we may get a read on legislative intent, Governor Britton. We may not. They may say, you know, you guys, you read the statute, do what you need to do, but I think we need to have a thorough vetting as a committee and as a board under the watchful gavel of Chairman Parker as to whether we believe these fees are intended to be stopgap fillers, if you will, for those areas where the funding either isn't sufficient or we just simply want to do more with the money we've been given. So I think what Governor Beard is saying is let's first see over the next week or so, and I know Vicki's excited that we keep having this conversation, but let's first see whether or not, based upon this conversation, this would fly in the face of legislative intent. It would be contrary to what they talked about, talking to legislative counsel, to make sure, because to me, and God bless Jim, it was very clear, this is what it is. I mean, we are, at least for my read of the presentation, we are enhancing CITF here. We're using these dollars for CITF type purposes. So if that's what we're doing, we need to make sure we want to do that. Not that we don't like the project, not that the project isn't great and meritorious and needy, but rather what's the message we're sending to the other 10 universities when we say this? Because we will see this over and over again as stopgap measures, and we may miss the entire concept behind the new fees.
In reference to this fee and facilities, it kind of shows the uniqueness and the differences of each institution. Because naturally, we did see the study that CITF isn't really filling or have the capacity to fill the obligation needed for student support, infrastructures and services. And yeah, it might be at a University of Central Florida, they might not need as much as CITF, increase or money to build an additional student union because of their business model. But then there's some institutions, and I can name quite a few, from the University of Florida to University of West Florida, as well as Florida A&M University, where we're more traditional and our business model is a little bit different. And so naturally, that CITF fund simply can't accumulate enough dollars to invest in reference to student support infrastructures. And so, I understand the portion of the part about, okay, do we want to add money for an existing fee, but at the same time, I still realize that the system is so unique and different in business models that if we're not meeting a need that's definitely needed, if you saw pictures, you would take out your checkbook right now and write a personal check to invest to help, facilitate this process. And so the thing is, how do we navigate through a process in order to be able to meet an essential need in reference to a holistic experience for a state university system student?
And let me be clear, I certainly understand that the 11 universities are unique. However, I would bet a month's paycheck that all 11 presidents could find the need for more CITF money. I'm pretty willing to bet they could make that happen. So I know they're unique and I know there's a need. I guess the challenge is our message isn't, is there a need? I think it's clear there's a need. Our message is this the vehicle through which we fund that need? Is this the vehicle through which we, by legislative statute, plug that hole, fill that shortfall, cover for money that might have been spent somewhere else, other decisions that might have been made by the trustees? Is this new fee authority that we've been granted by the legislature, particularly the first time we do it, the place to solve what is definitely a problem? I don't disagree with that. And I think what Governor Beard is saying is, well, first let's find out if we've got some kind of legislative intent, direction, and threshold. I think we do, but I'm certainly willing to defer so that Vicki can do a little more homework and research on it. I don't think anyone is questioning the need. The question is this the way to fix that need? Is this the appropriate way to do it, or does it fly in the face of what the legislature expected of this board with these fees? That's all. Is there any other discussion, or is there a motion of any sort?
Do you need a motion?
I think we want to deal with it in some way. Yeah, I don't want to just let it, I either want to accept, reject, or defer.
Yeah. I would move it to the full committee, the full board.
There's a motion.
That's the student life and service.
Sure, it's not the orientation fee, we'll get that. There's a motion to defer the student life and facilities fee to the board and ask the chancellor to instruct our legal staff to do a little bit more homework on this topic as well. Is there a second? Okay.
I think we ought to talk to the legislature, whoever the person was that wrote this bill.
Gotcha. Is there a second? Okay, that one dies for lack of second. Is there another motion? Governor Tripp moves approval. Is there a second?
I second it.
And seconded by Governor Franklin. Is there any additional discussion? Okay, seeing none, Chair Parker.
My only discussion to the committee is that if you make a decision to vote this out, with the understanding that there is a very similar issue to what we recognize for Florida Gulf Coast, that we will, in the interim, still seek General Counsel's review of the matter and an official recommendation to a full board. So,
well, in fairness to West Florida, it's not directly analogous to Gulf Coast. Gulf Coast is literally using this to create more bonding capacity. I think those are two very. I think that's more egregious than this, but that's just me. So is there any additional discussion? Governor Reed?
I was on board the direction we were going. I just was waiting to get other engagement going. I'm concerned. We're going two different directions here. So I'm ready to vote.
Okay. And I do want to be clear, just for the record, we did check the rules during the break, because it might be relevant on this vote. And as chair, I am able to vote to make a tie. But if I make the tie, I can't vote to break the tie. But I certainly can vote to make a tie, and if I vote to make a tie, the motion then fails because it was a tie. Mikey, would you please call the roll?
All righty. Ms. Duncan? Here. Mr. Franklin?
4.
Mr. Hosseini? Dr. Marshall?
4.
Mr. Rude?
Opposed?
Mr. Tripp?
Yes. 4.
Got it. Mr. Beard?
No?
And the chair will tie it as a no.
The chair will tie it as a no.
Mr. Chair?
So that is 3-3. That motion fails. I would be thrilled to find a motion to defer. Governor Rude.
Okay, I move that we defer this item to the full board.
Second.
There's a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, so seeing none, all in favor of deferring? And be clear, if the motion fails, the recommendation will be no. All in favor of the motion to defer the balance of this conversation, in other words, the no vote we just took would be supplanted by a vote that says we're going to defer to the board for further consideration, and the recommendation from this committee would not be the no that just occurred, but rather a deferral in lieu and waiting on our general counsel and other conversations. All in favor of the motion to defer, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed. So we will defer that one to the full board. Hopefully your counsel can work with general counsel, and we can work from there. As to the orientation fee increase, is there any discussion or questions with regard to the orientation fee increase? I didn't expect there would be. I'll call the question. I'm sorry, I need a motion. That will be important. Is there a motion to approve or reject the orientation fee increase? Someone must move something.
So moved. I'll second.
So move to approve or to reject? To approve it?
Approve.
There's a motion from Governor Marshall to approve.
Second.
Governor Tripp seconds. Is there any discussion? All right. Seeing none, Mikey, will you please call the roll?
Okay. This is on the orientation
fee increase.
Fee at UWF.
Yes.
All right. Ms. Duncan? No. Mr. Franklin?
Against?
Against?
Did you say against?
Correct.
He said no.
Okay, I didn't hear that. Okay, Mr. Hosseini? No. Dr. Marshall?
4.
Okay, Mr. Rude?
4.
Mr. Tripp?
4.
Mr. Beard?
4.
Mr. Chair, that's a 4-1 in a favor for the orientation fee.
4-1, the motion carries. Thank you very much. If you'll have your counsel work with Mikey, we can try to resolve the other issues.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Am I sensing we need a 5-minute break? I'm sensing we need about a 10-minute break.
Let's defer that to the full...
Why don't we, let's take a break for about 10 minutes and come back, please.